Right, so if you clicked on this video, you're probably here because you have a new skill you want to learn. Well, good news for you, I've put myself in the unenviable position of spreading myself thin between a billion different hobbies, so you've come to the right guy. As far as all the disciplines I've picked up that require some sort of substantial practice or craftsmanship, do you really want me to list them all? Alrighty then. Illustration, animation, creative writing, video editing, acting, voiceover work, guitar, music, production, running a YouTube channel, game design, interest, tabletop routines, and I'm probably forgetting quite a few of them. Anyways, over my long years of hopping from one new skill to another faster than a rabbit on crack cocaine, I've noticed a lot of similarities in how it's best to go about learning new things. This video is an aggregation of those similarities, a collection of advice on habit formation, learning strategies, and practical tips that will most likely apply to you no matter what new skill you might want to pick up. So, let's wrap up the formalities and get right into it, shall we? Part 1. Fundamentals. This is something that keeps happening with beginners. Everyone wants to be the best, but no one wants to learn the basics, seemingly. I'll just make this perfectly clear. Just please learn the basics. I tried to be a musician without learning music theory. Bad idea. I tried to be an artist without learning anatomy. Bad idea. I tried to develop games without learning any game design. Bad idea. Exactly what fundamentals means for the practice you're most interested will definitely vary, but they all have one thing in common, and that's it's stuff you need to learn to grow properly. Even if all you're planning on doing is becoming a hobbyist, it's just going to be a lot more fun if you genuinely know what you're doing. Part 2. Sucking. This one kinda speaks for itself. When starting out with a new art form, the stuff you're gonna make at the beginning is gonna suck. It's inevitable and it's nothing to worry about. To steal a line from one of my professors, the only way to learn something new is to make a lot of crap. If it helps, remember that everyone you look up to also sucked at one point. And they only got to the place they are today the same way you've got to. Just don't worry about feeling bad about your work or not liking it. Keep it up, I promise you'll get better eventually. Part 3. Commitment issues. To rip a line from YouTube music producer Andrew Huang, there is no perfect, only finished. Every piece of art ever released is part inspiration and part manufacture. An essential skill of being an artist is learning how to get things done. How to not leave half-done projects scattered around your folders. There are a few reasons this is important. First and foremost, it allows you to practice every aspect of what you're doing. Every single art form is going to go through different processes at the beginning of production versus the end. Pushing through actually finishing your work allows you to get practice on every part of your particular workflow. Secondly, by forcing yourself to finish things, you learn to let go of perfectionism. Wanting everything to be perfect can really stunt your creative process. As I said, there is no perfect, and not every piece of your work is going to come from a place of divine inspiration. You have to learn to move on to the next step, and that's hard. It's a skill that's going to need quite a bit of practice. Part 4. Crippling insecurities. As I mentioned earlier, you're not going to be proud of the first things you make, and it's important not to feel pressured to show your work to others if you don't want to. Remember, you're not a living performance, and whether or not you're comfortable with sharing is the most important part of the question. But keep in mind that sharing to the internet can be really useful to your progress if you're comfortable with it, because... Part 5. Sucking. Continued. Critique is one of the most precious resources you can gather as a learning artist. But at the same time, I empathize with the fact that it can be hard to cover your own work in red lines, even if you don't like it. It took me a bit of time to get to the point where I was ready to take critique impersonally and learn properly from it. But the critique you get is so valuable and the easiest and fastest way to improve. On top of that, most of the critique you're getting is in good faith. They don't hate you, they just want to pick apart your work so you can improve. Part 6. Poor financial decisions. Okay, sure. You could spend $3,500 on a top-tier display graphics tablet with all the bells and whistles. Or you could just not. There are a few reasons you want to start with lower-end hardware and software, money-wise. First off, you are just starting out and you're probably not 100% sure whether or not you're actually going to enjoy what you're doing. So if you buy an expensive piece of hardware and it just starts collecting dust, it's going to feel really bad. In comparison, it's not going to be quite as painful to leave a cheaper piece of hardware or software behind. In addition to that, expensive and advanced hardware can be really complicated and overwhelming to the point where it can actually get in the way of your creative process and learning. So don't do that. Part 7. Habit formation. Everyone wants that one weird trick that's going to make them the best at what they do. Well, unfortunately for the work adverse, that one weird trick is practice. But there is a way to make that quite a bit easier on yourself. It's called the 2-minute method, and honestly I forgot where I learned it from first, but it goes a little bit like this. If you want to practice every single day, make yourself practice on a daily basis for at least 2 minutes. When I say at least 2 minutes, I mean force yourself to do the 2 minutes and then leave yourself open to do however much practice you want after that. This does two main things. The first is that it's far easier to commit to a longer practice session when you're already started practicing than when you're just sitting around anticipating doing some sort of hard work. If you decide before you've started that you're going to practice for, say, an hour, then you're going to start avoiding it because that's a big commitment, and psychologically your brain just doesn't want that. Second thing is, even if you only practice for a little bit every day, it's going to form a habit around practicing. Habits are hard to break, especially good ones, since you'll have some positive associations with the results of those habits. So it's going to be a lot easier to commit to daily practice once a habit has formed around it. Ever since I've implemented the 2-minute method, I've never missed a day of practicing something. There are some days where I've only practiced for 2 minutes, but the habits I've formed are still valuable, even if I didn't really get much actual practice out of it. Part 8.
Just do it!
This is definitely the most important part of the video. You gotta start sometime. As I've stated earlier, you're only gonna learn by making a lot of crap, and the only way to get through the crap is to start. Not starting is the worst thing you can do to yourself. So yeah, that's about it. Hopefully some of the advice I gave here will be useful to you, and if you have something else you'd like to add, feel free to chime in the comments. Thanks for watching.
And now, how about drums? An instrument everybody loves.